there's a lot of congressmen and representatives that are speaking in a way that makes me happy because they are shitting all over centralized exchanges, centralized finance, CFI, and explicitly making sure that the news media that they're talking to knows the difference between decentralized finance and centralized finance. Explicitly saying, I want you to know decentralized finance is not the problem here. It is centralized finance that is having all these things, which they go back to talking about Bankman-Fried and the FTX thing. And they could talk about the other entities, but I think that they'll shy away from the other entities, A, because they were largely manipulated by FTX in the first place, and B, a lot of financial institutions came in and gave loans to those particular centralized exchanges in which they were able to appropriate those businesses on their own behalf, or at least be partnerships in those exchanges in a way that no longer do they need to worry about them doing nefarious things, because they're obviously being watched by those legacy finance major investors, like billions, trillions, like BlackRock type industries, or sister synergetic companies to BlackRock. In one way or the other, no matter how you slice the cheese, it's going back to BlackRock anyway, or Vanguard anyway, which are the institutions that generally manipulate and allow for the profiting off of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, trust funds, all the shit. So as soon as it all goes digital, then it's on, right? Like the whole game is ready to be played by all the players. Anyone who thinks that the government doesn't know about blockchain technology or fintech, financial technology, they're not watching what's going on. I've seen a lot of people. I mean, even I watched the congressional hearings on blockchain technology, fintech technology, and the way that they talk about it suggests, yes, they don't know what they're talking about. But also the way that they're talking about it is kind of like when you see somebody that knows what they're talking about, but you can clearly tell that they just don't want to tell you, right? Like you can see it in their face, like they're intentionally, I don't want to say lying, but they're intentionally pretending like they don't know because they want people to think that they got a long time to regulations, right? And usually with the government, it takes about 3-4 years to get anything accomplished anyway, because it moves pretty slow. But as you can see through the DOJ today, that they had been looking at taking corrective action on centralized exchanges in China and other places with the help of their German counterparts and their French counterparts for around the last 5 years. So I would have to say that if, that we would be correct in the thought process that it takes them about 3 or 4 years to actually get ready and prepared for being able to distribute actual like legislation and regulation. But from some of the stuff that I was looking at recently and today, it suggests to me that they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what's going on. They know exactly how they want to do it, but they just don't want anybody to know. So that way, the next time that you hear that crypto is dead, you actually kind of believe it. Like I said, they want to put you in a position to give you a way out. They're going to pump the market, and then they're not going to be the ones that are dumping it. It's going to be everybody else that's been waiting in a bear market for a year and almost a year and a half now. A year and a quarter, let's say, to be fair. And how many bear markets has there been that were this long? One other time that it was technically this long? How many bear markets has there been that were 800 days long? Or six to 800 days long. Let's just say 700 days. None? Anybody speak up and correct me if I'm wrong. Because I'm pretty sure that I'm correct. Going through that in the first time ever, also having cryptocurrency, going through its first recession, global recession, it's going to make people obviously bearish, not very confident, not know what's coming, and anything that they hear, it's going to make them jump off the cliff with all their money, put it into stables, do whatever, right?
Personally, I think this recession has been totally manipulated because this is the event horizon, I think, for the Great Reset.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's all about control. They've had regulations on crypto for years now. They just haven't put them into effect. And now they want more because they want to widen their scope of control.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's easy for them to do because it's something that they've done since 1933 or some shit, when the Federal Reserve actually put into place a lot of the stipulations that they have that put us in the positions that we're in today.
Oh yeah, we've all been led down the primrose path, little bit at a time.
Well, yeah, but okay, so how many times have you guys heard that market cycles have changed? A lot. I'm going to assume that you guys have probably heard that sentiment a lot, like the market's dead, crypto's dead type shit. And the whole time I've been one of the few people that have been over here like, nah, market cycles didn't change. If anything, they probably got a little bit longer because this is just taking a little bit longer for them to get positioned. Are they going to be set up and raring to go by the time that this particular market cycle of the bear is done? Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is going to be the new way that everything is played. Everything. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, trust accounts, however you do any of your current legacy finance stuff is going to be verifiable through financial technology, fintech. And this is how they just want to do it, right? It's a lot more smart for them to do it this way because they can manipulate the markets on their own behalf, follow their own regulations so they're not doing anything illegal. And anyone who does want to do illegal stuff to manipulate the markets in another direction other than the direction that they would rather it go are going to be arrested. Just like they should.
Either that, or as we saw in Canada, they could just turn the money off.
Sure. Yeah. But if you just play the game and you just go to work and you just do all the stuff and just, try to have a family and, green grass, and you want to barbecue and you want to retire at the age of 65 or some shit like this, then having the availability, because right now, before doing any of this stuff, what's happening here is that you used to be able to retire at, the age of 57. And then you could retire at the age of 64. Now it's good luck retiring at all if you can make it to the age of 72, 73. And you have to have at least over $1 million per person. So you and your old man or you and your wife better, by the time that you get to 70, have over $2 million in your bank or in your investments to be able to live off of for supposedly about 10 years, right? Which, in my opinion, when you think about it in today's terms, $1 million, for 10 years, or $2 million for two people for 10 years, doesn't that seem
not a lot of money?
Well, I mean, to me, it seems like a lot. It is. As long as you live within your means. Now, think about this. Minimum wage is only about $14,000 to $17,000. That's it. People literally live, depending on where you live, very, very low menial lives where they're perfectly fine with it. Otherwise, they'd probably do more, right? And can survive off of that small amount of money just fine. No, not just fine. I will not say just fine. The hardships in doing that type of life is that you're not just having one job, that you and your wife or your husband are both generally having to have multiple jobs, and the hardships of life is pretty fucking tough, right? Like, you'll probably die at a younger age, which is okay for all the life insurance folks, right? They're fine with that. The whole
Yeah, but
COVID.
what people don't realize is, and I'm sort of middle of the road, maybe middle, upper middle class. But I work with a lot of people who make, 15, 16, $17 an hour, have 3 or 4 kids. They're not married, but they're all on these government programs in the US.
Yep.
And I'm thinking to myself, how are you taking 5 kids to Disneyland? I can't go to Disneyland. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They go to
Yeah.
the hospital, they go to the ER for a cold. They never pay their bills, any medical bills. I paid all mine. I actually have a letter that says my student loan was paid in full.
So
You know what I mean?
wouldn't that suggest, Amy, that it would be more it would be an easier life to not try to live your life?
Well, yeah, but Mama likes her money.
I know.
I I like to do what I want to do.
Yeah, but mama's got to pay for all of her own stuff and then sit there and watch people who make a fourth of what you make still available to do the things that you do.
Yeah, but that's not me.
Yeah, I get
Because
it.
that's just I'm a little older than most people in crypto. At least I used to be. I think a lot more older people are coming in,
But I think the way that you
but
have to think about it, Amy, is like,
wasn't raised that way.
I get your own personal reasons and goals on that is because you like the freedom of being able to make those choices whenever you want to do those types of things. But you got to think about it like how the larger legacy financial industries want to view these things. The less people that can get to your potential, the better for them. The more that those people are reliant on social, like government programs, yeah, the less likely they will be to be able to get to your potential. So
Oh,
they don't.
absolutely. And the less likely they are to be dissatisfied, so they don't pay any attention, and you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, and then they're just dead, right? And then they're having to live a little bit more stressful life because they don't have the freedom to do what they want when they want, like you do. So they'll probably, stress is a killer. It's one of the leading killers on the planet. And because of that type of strain, they'll develop some sort of illness that'll take them
Oh,
out.
absolutely. Stress is almost worse than anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, I've studied it. I'm in the medical profession.
Yeah.
And people who live what what patently is known as an unhealthy lifestyle, but are chilling, generally live longer than one would expect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as long as they're financially stable and confident in their abilities, then
Like
yeah,
me, I'm in here making a gin and tonic in my giant cup.
yeah, and you're perfectly happy there, sitting in your home that is your
Yep.
home.
And I take no blood pressure medicine, no antidepressants. I'm over 60 and I take no meds except vitamins.
And those vitamins are
And
fucking
my
expensive,
blood
aren't
pressure is low. I broke a couple bones because I was in the service, but
they? Yeah.
and fell down the stairs, but that's another story. But other than that, I'm perfectly healthy. But I
So,
chill, shit happens.
and it's all like a social engineering thing that they're doing, that they've been doing for a very long time, and they do it in a way so that a lot of different groups of people under different low income, middle income, or high income, which middle income I'd split between low middle income, and high middle income because of the tax brackets and how they're set. Because low income pretty much these days doesn't even pay taxes. If you don't even make 12
No, they
grand,
definitely don't.
yeah, you pay zero taxes. So they give it even more benefit, or they at least make it seem like it's more beneficial to not be an entrepreneur and to work for somebody else and let them handle the stresses of it, which really, like, good entrepreneurs hire the right people to be the employees that handle the majority of the paperwork, like good secretaries that handle
I
pretty
can't
much.
even get an employee to show up for work, much less hire a good secretary.
I know, right? Like, the qualifications these days for being able to get hired is like, can you show up? Oh, you can?
Yeah, there was a good meme going around on Facebook at one point that I just loved. It was an actual sign that said, "Now hiring anybody that will show up for work."
Yeah. And if you have your own reliable vehicle, then you probably even get a raise, right?
Well, I know I changed jobs and I pretty much told them what I wanted, and they said, "Okay."
Yeah, I
But then
recently,
again, I have a 27-year work history with almost no break in employment. I don't call off because, that's just me. But I'm from a weird family background. Like my granddad, World War II, was in the desert. You ever see that old TV show?
yeah,
And he was in Army Corps of Engineers, and he actually had occasion to meet both Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong. And he always said that we backed the wrong one. I haven't got a hold of his memoirs yet, which he did write. He was actually asked to join Mensa and took the test and passed. And I always thought he was for the longest time when I was younger. And my mom's like, "No, he wasn't." I said, "What are you talking about? That was like the family thing. You always told me that." She says, "No, he passed the test, but when he found out all the rules he had to follow, he declined." I was
yeah.
like, "Oh, okay. Now I know where I get that streak from."
A lot of people are like that, though, right? Nobody. How many very confident people that are really skilled enjoy having that boss?
Oh, nobody. Well, then there's the challenge thing. My parents always instilled I I have this thing about being challenged. Like, don't tell me I can't. And my dad used this reverse psychology on me so many times, and I still fall for it to this day. But I
Good.
remember when I mean, you've been around chats with me, so you probably know I was in the Marine Corps. But originally, I was going to go in the Navy and went down to the federal building to take the physical and the final test. And all the recruiters had their offices like lined up on this hallway. So me and a bunch of Navy candidates were going to lunch. And there was this guy, didn't recognize the uniform or nothing, just kind of chuckling at us as we went by. We were all girls. And then coming back from lunch, same guy. And of course, here's me. I'm like, "What's so funny?" 18, full of, shit. He's like, "Well, it's a good thing you ladies are going into the Navy." And I'm like, "Why?" He said, "Well, because you'd never make it in the Marine Corps." And I went, "Oh, really?" That was it. I was done. Switched the whole thing. And
I
yes,
have
it
a
was very successful.
Women are capable of doing a lot of stuff as long as they can keep their heads on straight. Because I will say that,
Yeah, that's the truth. That is absolutely the truth. And I credit my parents, who were both teachers in the old school, not university, indoctrination people, but actual reading, writing, phonetics, arithmetic. My dad was a microbiologist. My mom taught second grade, but phonetics. Um, and they always told me I was the firstborn, so I went fishing and hunting with my dad. I was a tomboy to the max, so it was just my thing.
yeah, yeah. As long as you're not, and I'm seeing a lot of men that have a lot of feminine tendencies to be controlled by their emotions. And I don't know if
See,
you guys
that's the thing. That's the thing.
what
It's such a complicated web in society of you see the result, but when you start to think about what led the men to this point, it's so interwoven. It's like a spider web of milk toast bun wearing motherfuckers. like
well,
oh, let's all be Hawkeye Pierce, and no, you're toxic masculinity. And I'm thinking, why the hell aren't you opening the door for me and taking out the trash? You know what I mean?
well,
I can
because
make my own money, and my husband and I have we have an agreement. He handles the mortgage and the insurances and the 401k and all that stuff, and I take care of all the utilities and buy the food, and we've done it for years. And then whatever extra money's left over that's his, he gets to spend however he wants. I could spend mine however I want,
I think,
and he don't touch the crypto. I do the crypto. But
yeah,
it but it's not our first marriage. This is our second marriage. So we've learned.
yeah. But
But if
wouldn't you
you
agree?
everybody thinks they have a simple solution to society, but it's so interwoven with so many factors and variables. It's incredibly hard to change anything at this point.
Here's the problem, and you're not going to change anything. And here's the catalysts, right? I think the first catalyst is women's rights. So, not to say there's nothing wrong with it, right? But when women were fighting for their rights before they had them and they were just known as property, those women knew a few things. They knew that the rights that they were fighting for were created by men and for men, and by men. So they had to use those rights in a particular way, even though they were women, right? And then the mistake that was made through my speculation would be through social engineering, was to propagate women through media as princesses, and they should be pretty, and they should be more aware of makeup and things like this. So to over feminize women, was to get them off of the strong, independent woman mentality for that period of time. And then what they ended up doing, which is the second catalyst in this engineering, was to break the family. So there was a separation of church and state. So you take ethics.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The breakdown of the nucleus. Oh, it used to be something that, and just for one example, say a woman's body, like your virginity or whatever, used to be something that was cherished by both the men and the women. And you didn't give that up easily. You weren't 14 years old slinging your shit out on social media. That was something that you kept to yourself, because right. that was you. And I don't care if people say it's only sex, blah, blah, blah. It can be only sex, but not till later on. That first one, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what the feminists say. It's a thing. Mm-hmm. It's a big thing.
It's propagated like that for the control, for the mental
exactly
of the control.
And exactly. And they've taken control of it and said, oh, it's okay. It's okay. Have another child out of wedlock. It won't matter. It won't do anything. And it all, from my perspective, all these little tiny threads and spider web silk all leads back to the whole 50, 60, 70, 100 years of trying to reset the frickin'. It all leads back to the frickin' families trying to control the world. For me, that's what it leads back to.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, the way to easily control people is through fear and separation of mindset. So you got women's rights that comes through by, like I said, a bunch of women who knew what those rights were. They didn't care whether it was fair or not. They didn't give a shit. But the mistake that was made is they didn't teach their daughters those values. And they just wanted their daughters and sons, in a lot of cases, to just try to live a happy life, right? Yeah, you have these freedoms. You're equal in the eyes of men and women. You can go get your job. Nobody can stop you. You know, kind, creed, whatever. You're still available for employment on anything that you want to do, right?
Right. And then people
It sounds good.
from the 60s on, after the whole hippie movement, people wanted to be their kids' friends and not their parents.
Yeah.
Okay, you have a creative child. Okay, you foster their creative, foster whatever bent they have going on. But you also have to teach them responsibility and discipline, because you're not going to land in a CEO position right out the gate. You have to start somewhere. That's why people of my generation, and I don't know how old you are, it might be yours too. When I see $15 for doing fries at McDonald's, I'm like, what are the high school kids going to do to teach them how to show up for work, build a good work reputation and a work ethic? What are they going to do now? Because all the people who think this is a career are just going to stay there. That's an
Yeah.
entry level job. There's a reason it's called an entry level job, because you're
It's,
not supposed to stay there forever.
right. You got 40-year-olds that are working on the line at McDonald's. Yeah. It's not good. That's not good. Which, I mean, if that 40-year-old
What do
has
the
like,
corporations do then? They just make staffless POS systems,
well, and
because
they
we
make a
can't, you know, we just cut down on the staff. So you just defeated yourself again.
and they still make a lot. They still make a fuck ton of money too, and that's another thing, right? Because it doesn't take much to get
There's
people.
another thread. People think their employers, if they work for a big business, people think their employers actually give a shit about them. It's not fair, they say. Well, they're a
Right.
corporation, and by definition, all they care about is the bottom line.
Yeah, the dollar. Yeah, because the only people that they actually care about is the shareholders, and that's kind of like what I'd been saying about, with this recession after Christmas, was that's the bottom. The perception of the bottom would be that we see people losing money in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and their trust accounts, their crypto investments, and pretty much any investing that you could possibly do. People try to go from stocks to bonds because the interest rates are raising. They're trying to mitigate their losses. Any other people that are like bouncing around thinking about cryptocurrency, they get a little bit into it, but they don't ape in, obviously. They think that when they see low prices in crypto from the 50K like Bitcoin all the way down to like the 19, 16K, that it's a good buy. Richard Hart would suggest otherwise, that if you really wanted to get the bottom, you should wait a little bit longer, which I think that he's right, because you've got Mt. Gox, you've got the staked Ethereum, you've got the confiscated Bitcoin from the government, from hackers that the government's holding on to. There's a few, and there's more than that too, but there's a few outliers that are there that would suggest that to get to 10K would just be that alone, just what I just said there, right? But the prey part would be any liquidations that would happen from people that are leveraging and over collateralizing their positions in the ranges that we're currently sitting in now, which, I mean, there's plenty of time that's going on. Like I said, 2 full months before a movement. I mean, you're having technical analysis guys that are showing their wedges, their bullish wedges or their bearish wedges, or they're just regular centralized wedges or whatever, that they run out of time where it gets tight and they see that it should have a breakout in some sort of way, up or down, and they're bypassing that. It just goes a little bit further than that. Instead of a month of a wedge, it's going into double that, where the movements don't suggest that the timelines would be congruent with each other. So then it leaves people confused, and that's exactly what they want, right, in those markets. So if you were to have that confusion for a long period of time, then it's no longer confusion, but it turns into complacency, where people get used to it. And in that complacency,
Exactly.
it's all a psychological game that they're doing with that,
It's
especially
like
when into crypto.
it's like I know. You're so good at laying shit out. And then I relate it to something super simple that I can tell somebody else, like US gas prices. They go
Mhm.
up. Let's say, just for example, it's $1. Goes up to $1.60. People start screaming. Okay, well, let's bring it back down till they stop screaming. A couple years later, $2. Start screaming. Bring it back down, but not below 60. Oh, it's okay. Then the next thing you know, a couple years later, it's 250.
Yeah,
So it's like
you want,
it's
and you can see
it's
that
just
though,
killing you
too.
by inches.
And you can, okay, so let's say gas prices go up to $5.50 average, $5.50, $6 average. I mean, like California is more
I
like
live in
seven.
Pennsylvania. We get the highest average
Yep.
in the country.
If you're living on the coastlines, then you're looking at the prices of being around $7, $8, $9. And then as you go towards the center of the country, that's where your actual average sets into place. Where here in the center of the United States, you're paying somewhere around $3.50, $4 a gallon, which is expensive here, right? About half the cost that you guys have. However, what you need to not look at is the prices. What you need to look at is when it goes to $5.50, $6, or $9 where you're at, $10 where you're at. What you see is the government come out and go, the reason why this is happening is because of Russia or because of
Oh yeah,
China
Russia,
or because,
Russia, Russia.
or because of what other extenuous circumstance. Is that the right word? Extenuous? Sure. We'll just use that. It sounds like,
Extraneous.
yes, right. It's an extreme, a global thing
Oh
that is
no,
happening.
extenuating. That's what you're
Yeah,
looking for.
extenuating circumstance. It's so complicated that they can give you a fugazi reason, and you're going to believe it. And then what the aha moment happens, where you realize that they bullshitted you on the whole thing, is when they counter the okay, so it's not a supply demand thing. Usually a supply demand thing is a little bit easier to understand. But even when they bring gas prices to $5 to $9, the expensive side of sports on that, the demand is still there. And they have an oversupply as it sits because they're not worried about cutting down that supply in reality. So what you end up seeing
No, they're
happen,
just waiting for people to get used to it.
yes, exactly, the complacency, they let that set in. So then they counter that by lowering those costs because they've already made through certain quarters of profitability that they want to be able to show to their shareholders, which actually brings in more investors, is that the when the prices start going down, they flip even the shareholders' psychology on their head and say, yeah, out of all the profits that you have had, then this is another buying moment for you as well. And then what happens is that,
Right. And that flips over into the political arena because then they do that when certain people want to get reelected who are favorable to certain corporations.
yes, you're
You know what I
following me.
mean? It's a whole web.
Okay, so let me get this out because I realize that you are actually following what I'm about to say here. So this is awesome. Okay, so I don't get this. I don't get excited like this, just normally having a conversation because I can't talk to people around like in real life about this stuff because they just simply don't understand it. Uh, but like I said before, prices go up. They blame Russia. They blame China. They blame some other thing that's too complicated to really understand. And it could be, might not be, not really sure, but sounds good enough, right? Then you get complacent, and then after they lower those prices, they get the shareholders back to investment mode again. They go. The reason why prices were the government comes out, or Biden, let's just say Biden, because this is exactly what happened, is that he comes out
Now
and he
you're
goes,
making me not.
I know the reasons why prices are low, because this is Biden that said it was Russia, that it was because Russia and the Ukraine thing is the reasons why gas prices are so fucking high. And we're trying to do everything we can right now to try to get control of all this stuff, but it's just
Oh my
going
God, I
away.
was laughing my
So
ass off.
then,
I'm like,
so then
really?
after
Really?
they, so this is, I'm wrapping your head around what's going on today now. Okay. So now what I was telling you about the shareholders and the investors, how they're going to start spending that money, right? They're going to start investing into these things right now. So what they're doing is now Biden comes out, or the government comes out. I'm doing a lot of quotation marks, right? They come out and now they're saying the reasons why the prices are so low is because we fixed it. We did it, right? Which happened to be right around the time of midterms, right? Just like what you were saying, that this is their time in which they want to be able to garner that control. But what happened with midterms?
Absolutely.
What happened with those midterms? Now, everyone thought, okay, well, if the Republicans come in, because there's a lot of people that are pissed off with what's going right now with the Democrats. And I know that the Democrats, even the Democrats, are kind of like, this is not what you guys said was going to happen. But if the Republicans come in and make a clean sweep so they have control of everything, then maybe things would change for the better. But what a lot of people don't also realize, because I'm a card carrying Republican conservative, right? But even I don't throw
No, the old guard, it's two sides of the same coin at this point.
Yeah, I use the term it's two wings of the same
Like
bird.
the McConnell. I've been a Republican for years. My family's always been Republican. Exactly.
And it's
That's why people are amazed when they're like, "Oh, excuse me." Hillary was mad because it wasn't her turn. It was her turn. You know, Bernie was mad because it was his turn. They just been flipping back and forth for how long? You know, before I even started paying attention. I'm sure.
Well, Republicans start overstepping their bounds, and the Democrats lose their fucking shit. Right? They actually look like they're doing something. Right? Like they're trying to correct that. You're doing too much. Right? And they actually do something. But in the end result, the Republicans end up doing nothing in the end result. And then the Democrats overstep their bounds.
How many times have the Republican had the mandate? They've had the House and the Senate, twice in the last, 20 years maybe? And did nothing. Nothing.
Yeah. Yep. And then the Democrats get power, and it's kind of the same thing, kind of. But what they do is a lot of nothing, a lot of nothing, a lot of nothing. Where the House of Representatives that represents the people don't even have discussions of, like, they don't even have like good options of discussions based off of the regulations that come out in, let's say, I don't know, the recent 4,000 paged regulatory documentation that came out that they voted on in the middle of the night.
I mean the one that was released 2 days before you had to vote on it, or the other one before that on Obamacare that was in the middle of the night that nobody read, but I downloaded all 1,500 pages of it and read it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the thing that a lot of people like lose probably a little bit of context with was the Patriot Act and how fucked off that
thing ever.
Yeah, it was really fucked.
That was the crack in the door, dude. Yep. That was the crack in the door. Everybody was so scared after 9/11 that they just let the government get that foot in the door.
And you know that they
just flowed from there, because never let a good crisis go to waste, you know.
You know how many pages had literature on it when they passed that act? I
have always thought there was probably several blank pages with a signature at the bottom.
There was
fill in later.
There was like 0 pages actually filled out. They passed the act and then wrote it all later.
Seemed mighty quick to me.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. The Patriot Act was the beginning of where the government was going to just do whatever it wanted to do at any means necessary, because it already knew before anyone else knew what was happening. They destroyed so many financial records in that building number 7 that no matter what they did after that point, it was all bets off. There were so many black projects that had trillions of dollars that just
See, and I've always thought that was targeted, whether it was by bad guys or whether some of us had a hand in it, but that was targeted. That was random.
That's the thing, is it doesn't even matter what the actual cause was. It doesn't matter who did it. It doesn't matter why. All that matters is that building number 7 had all the financial records for all the black projects that they've ever done in the trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars all over the globe.
Yep, and they seized that opportunity and ran with it.
And you know who was investigating that type of nonsense at the time before they actually like started doing the Patriot Act thing in the first place, because the Patriot Act was supposed not even a thing. 9/11 hadn't even happened yet, and they were already investigating it. Donald Rumsfeld had already had them doing it. It was the Pentagon, and the Pentagon just happened to be struck exactly.
Couldn't be that side of the Pentagon that blew up, could it?
That's exactly correct. The side that got blown up, which has like multiple layers that go through it, happened to be the offices that had all the people that were working on it and all the paperwork that was involved in those investigations. So all that went up in flames as well. Yep. So all the evidence, and anybody that knew about the evidence was gone. Right then.
Now it can be manipulated in any way you want. Hey, sidebar. When I talk, am I super loud?
No.
Okay. Because I remember in the main chat, people used to always tell me, you sound like you're screaming, but I'm really not. I'm talking very softly, but I don't know how to control my own volume.
You are at about 100%, so you're good. You're absolutely perfect volume, so no worries.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't screaming in your ear, because I've been told that before, but it may very well have been me. I don't know.
Well, what you don't know is I don't mind it when people scream in my rear.
This is why I come here. I love you guys, for real. I can listen to y'all talk for hours. I mean, seriously, Hex was like my third thing to buy in crypto. I haven't been here that long, but I have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours. Like, seriously, a nurse at my work said, my son just made a bunch of money on Robinhood with Shiba Inu. And I'm like, well, I could throw $100 at that and see what happens, because I'm always looking for something, because I have retirement needs. When
was that? Please tell me.
I think it must have been April. It was around April of, no, I didn't make any. I mean, I actually cashed out when it went down, and then it's got that little bounce, and I actually cashed out when I just a tiny bit of loss, so I could claim it as a loss, because I'm not dumb. Because I knew it wasn't going anymore. By that time, I'd already moved on to research things. And then I bought something called, what is it when you want to screw the mothers?
What are you talking about?
No, it's a saying, like, mothers I'd like to F,
Oh, yeah, MILF, a MILF.
MILF. I bought the MILF token because I thought the name was funny. And it was supposed to be mothers I'd like to fund, like underprivileged women and stuff. Well, that was a rug, but I only put like $200 into that. And then I had all the scammers coming, and I didn't even know how to delineate the scanners at that time. And they were saying, oh, come over here to the Safe Moon token, blah, blah, blah. So I was just cruising around, and I was still on Reddit at that time. And this Hex ad kept popping up, 39 APY. And I'm like, blockchain CD. I'm like, I know what a CD is. I'm old, but I know what that is. So I went and checked it out, and I watched one of the old Richard videos where he was just motherfucking people left and right. And I'm like, that's my dude right there. That's the guy.
I don't know if we're gonna get that guy again, right? I think that everyone.
But I could see the intelligence, and he was just so frustrated. It seemed to me he was very frustrated because people would not look at the facts, which is kind of how I feel talking to everybody in healthcare now. But I went back and watched every single one of those videos, all the way from the beginning, all the way up. Joined all these groups, and you can ask like ID or Mango or Walrus or anybody. I spent months, Papa hooked me up with the Vault wallet and the whole thing. And I was like, okay, I'll buy that. I didn't even know what I was doing, but I was like, security, good. I'm good with that. So Hex was like my third thing. And then I sacked for Pulse, and I sacked for Pulse X, and
you're going to be so happy that you did that.
And all the stakes I put in, I put in I have Maxi at 15 years from the initial. I had like 2 5 5 5 5s because they're like, well, aren't you older? And I'm like, yeah, but I'd rather be an old rich old lady than a poor old lady.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm trying to keep it simple, like you said. I'm trying to keep it simple. I got my hex, which is going to be duplicated, and I'm still working on building ladders. And I got my pulse X, Hedron, Icosa. I haven't claimed the weight yet. I'm still waiting because it was free. So if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I didn't lose nothing.
Yeah, same here.
And there's something else I can't remember, but it's all like within the ecosystem. I'm real paranoid about going away from that because I have a Mac. I'm not a coder. I don't read that shit. I rely a lot on my instinct and listening to people if you listen long enough, you will hear what people are really saying. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Because I mean, it's hard to say stuff without feeling like people are going to take it the wrong way, or put you in a position to be like, you told me this or that or the other or whatever. But you just have to speak in general terms at least, and not be very definitive in your statements, but still
right.
try
And
to.
don't take this the wrong way, but I love coming in this chat because you can keep a conversation going, and that's a skill that not many people have anymore, shall we say? But you have a nice intonation in your voice, so it's easy to listen to you, and you still bring good information all the time.
Shit.
I have to say, I was into the straw man thing, and that whole thing. I had this little niggling in the back of my head, and I'm still tossing it up whether I want to do it or not for real. And I'm thinking, could I afford to lose this money? And I'm thinking, I don't know, it might be worth it. And then I go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and I still haven't decided yet.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a struggle for a lot of people. But
because I would like to do that paperwork thing, and I was totally into like the free will offering. I was like, yeah, I can throw some money in that, a fiat on an offering from Pulse Chain. Yeah, I could do that.
Dude, all it took for me was to see the litigation on that case. And since I've seen litigation on cases before because of my other half, right, and the work that she does, I immediately first I read it from the bottom up, and I didn't even have to get all the way to the top. So when I read the very bottom part of the page, I saw what the consequences were to the action without knowing what the action actually was. And the consequences meant that this whole thing needed to be torn the fuck down. The whole shebang, because everybody would have gotten in some trouble.
Well, that's what they, the whole NDA thing and keep everything, just, and I can't tell you and blah, blah. And, like,
she wasn't being honest.
I don't know, that threw up all my red flags, right?
She wasn't being honest.
But I do understand about I have done, and my family has done some research on like the whole straw man thing and the corporation. And there is some legal precedent which could be used. But the final straw for me, and I didn't even research the chief quote, I'm using your quotes. But when they said, just call him up on the phone, he'll talk to you. I'm like, there is no chief of any Indian nation in America who's going to take some stranger's phone call. Sorry.
Right. Talk to you about what exactly?
Yeah, he'll explain everything to you. Oh, wait, is he related to the Ethiopian prince? Because we're not going there.
Yeah, there was, I mean, definitely, having some big players on our side and I mean like Jess Pitt B, Buckfoot, and some other guys that would rather remain nameless. There's
and Buck can be a little abrasive at times, but he knows his shit.
Right. we were investigating that whole thing for a little while. And
well, yeah, and then Jesse put up those posts about the chief, and I was
yeah,
like, oh fuck no.
yeah. And to have some people on the inside to really figure out what was exactly going on, because this was a direct attack on the Hex community, was the best case scenario to actually get it to be shut down. And I'm not going to go through the details on what we did and how it happened.
Yeah, I don't need details because I know
Nobody will get the.
peripherally I know a lot of the people that you know,
Yeah.
and like
I'm not going to give anybody any.
that's I do remember thinking to myself, there's no way Hexecutioner has fallen for this shit. Like honestly, I was like, what is he high?
I don't do any
Because
drugs anymore.
because
I used.
you've always given out good info. You've always been very level headed, looking at both sides of issues, as far as I can tell from listening, because that's what I do. I listen a lot. Because
Yeah.
I put the earbud in at work because I work night shift and y'all keep me awake like all night long. And it's just
There,
sort of like an osmosis thing. But I'm thinking there's no way he would be getting into this as a scam. No.
that was probably one of the most intricate, fucking confusing scams that the majority of us have ever seen.
And
It,
honestly, I think Mango's still into it for real.
here's the thing is I love Mango. I think he's great. But he has for years said that if there was anything with government stuff that you can get him, attached to or get him to look at or something like that, then he would be the one that would jump on the grenade. He'd be the one that would go look into.
Well, and he did say that several times. I'm going to be the test case. I'm going
He
to be
said
the test case.
before any of this stuff, he was saying all that stuff for years. So for
Yeah,
him to have his like behavior with the whole thing doesn't really surprise me with when it comes to him. And that's fine. Like
true.
he's a grown ass man. He's going to do whatever the hell he wants. But
Yeah.
I would just like suggest that if you're going to go look into that type of stuff after that information was released, that you find your own means to do it.
Oh, and
And
that particular thing is done.
yeah,
That's done for me. But
and
the whole idea of it is still intriguing.
I've got a couple of guys, and I can't say I've got a couple of guys because these guys just kind of do it on their own, that are watching those ladies too, as they change their names, who they are, what their new names are, and where they're at and what they're doing.
Well, I know. Well, I'm in like the militia chats and that with ID. And honestly, he's never steered me wrong. Like the taxes and stuff, he helps out for nothing. And I know he's can be a little abrasive. I think he's a little bit bipolar, but I love him anyway.
He just he is,
but he's on point with the freaking what's happening in the future, man. For real.
he's very passionate with what he does. So he
Yeah,
does.
he is. He did lose control. I was in chat that day that he lost it on Convicted. And I was like, dude, you're so banned for this. I was thinking to myself, and I wasn't secure enough yet. I was still in listening mode. And because we used to have a lot of conversations, at like 2 or 3 in the morning when I was at work during slow time. And then Convicted came in and I'm like, dude, that's not what he's saying at all. You're losing your shit. And I didn't speak up, and I should have, because I knew. I came back the next day and I was like, they were all talking about him. I'm like, oh fuck, he got booted.
Yeah,
I just knew it. I just knew it.
He walks through the ecosystem a lot more diligently and a lot more carefully now, as you can see. Right, he's a lot more careful.
Yeah, he's calmed down quite a bit, but he still has his moments, and like he'll shut everything off and shut down all the groups, but I'm still his messenger friend, like on Facebook and that. So I'll go and I'll be like, dude, when are you gonna go see somebody, dude? I don't know. I think he thinks like I love him to death, like a son,
Yeah.
And I'm like, Mom's telling you that was over the top. And we've had voice chats and stuff,
He's a
We try to
Midwest.
keep him a little bit leveled out, but he's smart as hell,
Yeah,
but very emotional, very emotional.
he's passionate. He's a Midwest guy. He's probably not used to a bunch of different types of people from all over the country. You get a couple of you
Well,
guys
he's
from.
he's also very Hispanic,
Yeah, yeah,
with the
but
whole macho thing.
he's also from like, the Missouri, Kansas
Yeah.
area, right?
Oh
So
yeah,
it's.
and his family's not poor, so
Mhm.
they're all finance people. But I'm telling you, the dude is bipolar.
I will say that I really am not worried about the hex community and the growing other communities that are building with hex, and the people
No,
that are
probably not.
not so much, because the communities is particularly intelligent and well have their fingers into every, like, all the stuff
I
to kind
have
of see
found
stuff.
I have found that just looking around, surfing and stuff. There's a lot of really smart people here, and if they're doing their own thing, fine.
Mhm. But also,
And it's probably because of what they either learned here or they met people here or they want to accentuate what's going on here. In the community, like Alex and with the Hedron and the wrapped HSIs and all that, which I made my first one the other day. Yay.
nice. Congratulations. Took you long enough. Shit.
Well, I did a bunch of tiny ones in the very beginning. I did like 4 that I was just testing it out, and then I threw a couple out like 15 years, and then I did the maxi. Um, I can't even remember the order in which I did things, but now I've made enough of a ladder where I'm trying to stake bigger and longer.
Nice. Well, I think the
So
good thing is.
I think when I get to like 20, anywhere from 25,000 of something up, like Hedron or Hex or whatever, because the bear to me, like my husband
Fine.
and I didn't lose any money when the stock market crashed. We
Yeah.
freaking made money. We were watching the television the night that it started going in the toilet, and I'm looking at him and I'm going, "How much cash we got?" you know. And at the time, he was working for the federal government, so he had the ability to move his money 4 times a month, whereas most civilian companies will give you what, twice a month, maybe, or once a month. So he
Mhm.
could move it in and out of S&P or Dow or into the bonds, 4 times a month, working for the Fed. It was with the Army Corps of Engineers. So we grabbed up all the cash we could. We got like I don't know, Ford at $4. We got Harley at 20. It's crashing. I'm buying. So that's my mindset. So that's what I've been doing this whole bear. Like every little bit, I just I'm buying ETH dips so that I have enough ETH when it goes back up to get my legacy stakes out. you know. And I'm thinking, why doesn't everybody think of this? Because you know your stake isn't worth nothing if you can't cash it out because you can't afford the gas. And if you've
Yeah.
got if your stake is now worth you know several million hex and you haven't like ID told me and I brought this up to him and he said, well, here's what you do. You take when you're staking the hex, you take 10%, 90% hex, 10% ETH, and you just leave it there. And I'm good with that because that was my plan all along, to buy the ETH dips so I have enough money to unstake the legacy. And now I'm trying to build like at least I figure even back pre-SAC when everybody was like, oh, Pulse Chain's going to be 3 months, December. I'm like, no, it's not. I even as a newbie, I was like, it'll be at least a year. So it didn't surprise me at all. That's why I'm not freaking out. I didn't put real life money in. If I want to put money in, I work some overtime. Bills are paid, house is fine, shit goes on. But anybody that thought that was coming out in 3 months is dreaming, just dreaming.
Yeah. No way.
I mean, I know most people have a lot more money than me, but I got enough where if it all works out right, I can retire just fine. I don't need a lot. I'd like to do some traveling, but I don't need excessive travel. I would like to see cool stuff, not I'm fine with not wearing Gucci. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah,
give me
me
a nice
too.
little grass shack on a beach somewhere. I'm happy. I would like to have a horse though. I've always wanted to have a horse.
Get one in Florida or some shit.
Oh, I've lived in Florida already. I did that when I was younger. Had a
But
damn good time too.
you don't have to live there. You can just buy a horse and stable it there
I
whenever
wouldn't
you.
mind living in Florida again, but it's actually one of the better places in the US to live right now. But since DeSantis took over and they have such an influx of people, the cost of living has skyrocketed.
Yeah.
However, my girlfriend has never left, my best bud from the service, and she has a house, and we'd always put to be like Kate and Allie and just be like buds and die together. So at least I have somewhere to go when I want to go visit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like the people that are in Hex and the greater Hex community, I suppose, um, it's pretty simple, right? Like Hex is, in my opinion, Hex is not a bad. It's not a bad investment, and chances are, if you utilize any Hex that you'd already put in previously at a lower cost to buy a shit token or something,
Nope,
then you're
haven't done
probably
that. Everything has been fiat
yeah.
or free.
There's a lot of people who have. But if you were to be one of those people, you're probably going to be buying back in at a higher price later, which I do thoroughly believe that that's the case.
Oh, absolutely. I think my
So
highest point of entry was pre-sac. I think it was because I didn't sell anything when it went way up into 50s, but I stopped buying because I had had enough. I had a goal of what I wanted to sack and how many pulses I wanted to have to begin with, and I met that. So I think my highest intake was so like 17 cents, I think.
the bigger investors that think the way that I do are still they're still waiting for even if hex price goes up, they're not going to get that psychological feeling that tells you in the back of your head, oh, I should have bought, because there's still some time for it to go back to where we currently see the current prices, and then maybe even
Oh yeah.
potentially low, only because the correlation that's through connected to Ethereum and Bitcoin and the greater
Well, I
markets.
haven't bought any hex in a while. Now I've been stacking USDC and DAI and ETH, like I said, so that I have that ready
Now
because I
the prices are defended though, right? Like if you were to say that Hex has hit its bottom already,
no, I don't think so.
You probably aren't correct, but you're not dissatisfied in the purchases that you made. Same thing goes with Hedron and Icosa too, right? Because
Right.
they've already kind of went through the cycle. Even Icosa went through
Well,
this.
this is my quandary because I see good futures for all of those things, and I own all of those things. So when I get
Yeah,
my stables stacked, because Coinbase has been very nice to me, I can put my little bit in and transfer it to my wallet in like 5 minutes.
yeah, real quick. Yeah, the thing
All of a
that
sudden, after making me wait like 7-8 days, all of a sudden, bam! I'm like, okay, this
yeah,
is good.
I'm kind of past the
So
whole worrying about investors or trying to really talk to investors about like their investment strategy stuff,
yeah,
because
no, I
I
have
see.
my own, and I'll do my thing, and
Yeah, but the thing that's important here is that, with the whole pulse chain thing that we got going on, and we see a lot of other founders that are out there that are big time hexagons already, that those guys are very important to the ecosystem.
oh yeah,
And they really, 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 and if I could say really like 100 more times till you're like, just spit it out, I would. But they really fucking care, not just about Hex, not just about Richard Hart, but the entirety of the community. And that is
it's
like,
very unusual.
well, it's really important to me right? Like it's really important that us that have been around for 3.5 years now are still together and still talk and still have sidebar communication and still
Absolutely.
like investigate every fucking thing. Like I don't even have to do
And truthfully, one of the big draws for me, as you know, the little bitty, I don't know, what am I, a freaking crab, I think, little bitty crab that I am. Like I have, and I've never deleted any of my DMs, so that when I, if I do need to DM someone, they know it's me, because you can see the history. But like they'll answer me. Like these people who have like millions of, they're all into this and have way more invested than I do. They'll still take a minute to answer me, which
well
I
here's
find highly impressive,
here yeah
truthfully.
that's okay, check this out. So
And I don't abuse it. I hardly ever.
yeah, of
But
course, but you
if
have to be
something
able to,
happens that I need to know, is that from people that I have learned are generally, from what I can discern, trustworthy,
you have the
they will
availability.
they will answer it, or they'll
Yeah,
say, "Give me a minute to check it out," and then they get back to me, which is just the bomb.
absolutely. That is very important. And I think that us as a community, we kind of lose sight of that because we're not really in a bunch of other communities that don't have that. So I think that what you normally see in like a lot of other communities is people get in early, they're in Telegram chats, they're on Twitter, they're like promoting stuff, and then they're rich, and then you don't see them again because rich people don't hang out in Telegram chats. Rich people don't hang out on social media. Rich people are sitting on the fucking beach with their feet in the water and their ass in the sand. So what we have
That's
here
my
in the,
saying.
well, I mean, because it's true, right? But
I
in
know, but that's on my profile. That's my thing.
oh, is it? Oh, it does say that.
Yes,
Say that toes in the water,
that's
ass
my
in the sand.
goal.
Nice. Okay, and then you won't be in these chats so much then either, and that's fine. Well, unless you're like like you're building
No,
or
I probably will, because I like you guys.
that's cool. See, that's the type of the community environment that we generally have in the hex,
Well,
the
plus,
greater.
if I make a lot of money, I'd like to help other people make money too.
Dude, that's just the way the hexicans really are, and I think a lot of hexicans have learned their lessons with being taken advantage of with that type of stuff. Because there are a lot of people that come out and have this sob story, and then you have like four big time hexicans that are like, "Send me a wallet address and I'll help you out," right? And then they just taken advantage of
Yeah, that
when
just
that.
impresses me so much.
Yeah, that happened when Pulse Chain first, the Telegram chat first launched, and we were all in there talking, and nobody really knew who we all were, right? Um, but what I noticed, even though I just said that when people get rich, they generally disappear, or they're off doing life, they're doing other things in those other communities, and Hexican, and like rich Hexicans kind of do the same thing. As a matter of fact, really, really rich Hexicans, they might be in these chats, but they never speak.
But you won't know it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. They don't tell you who they are. They may speak every once in a while, but it's not in any way to try to garner any attention. And
Oh no.
they may like send DMs or something like that to one of us other guys that have been around for years. And then, because I think that there's like an inkling inside of them that they're like, I kind of need to let somebody fucking know who I am. Right. So then that happens every once in a while. But in that conversation, it's like, please don't tell anybody who I am. And
Well,
it's
and
like, yeah,
then there's the truth
right.
that, you made it in this community, so you want to let other people know you made it, but you don't want to be like super ego, you
Of
know?
course. Yeah. And a lot of those guys, they're like big time entrepreneurs that have like multiple businesses, and they don't really want like the public to know that they're even involved in crypto as a whole right now. And maybe
Right, exactly, because people look at you funny.
yeah, and a lot of people don't really understand it. But I mean,
No,
like as far as like crypto adoption has happened like worldwide, I would say
it
that like
is, but I'm telling you, my profession, I have tried to help some of these people with some very simple, like I'll drop a seed and
mhm,
hope it grows, like, just jokingly say, "Yeah, I'm gonna be a crypto queen. I'm into that." I got a couple, but they're
yeah,
older like me. Like there's an LPN who's older. He's completely snow topped, and he gets it.
Snow topped.
But the younger ones, they have no clue. They don't even. They're like, "What's a Bitcoin?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
Well, it's like they don't understand the wallets and the stuff like that either. So
I didn't either when I first started. I had no wallet. That's why I had to buy two because I didn't. I just did it off my phone the first couple buys
yep.
until I was listening in the pulse chain chat and Papa whooped my ass. And I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
I think that a couple of us that have been around for a while, like, have been getting some talk from bigger players, like Blue Bum and a couple others that have been kind of, they don't really talk a whole lot like in these spaces, but when they do, you still listen to them, and like
Oh, I listen to Blue all the time.
yeah, I
Whenever
love
he talks, I'm listening.
I like to get into arguments with Bluey because it's fun, because I can
I
really
think
kind of extract stuff
I
from
think
him.
you don't call them arguments. I think you call them discussions.
Yeah, or reasonable amounts of discourse, right?
Exactly. It's a
So
discourse.
yeah, we don't necessarily argue. We just try to put each other into positions where we're talking to each other sensibly, so that way we're actually like, because I would never talk down to him, and he would never talk down to me, but we would definitely talk to each other in a way that is more beneficial. So like, I think that we all kind of have this understanding that if you want to have more crypto adoption, then we already know that when it comes to the hex community, that there's very little education that you can really kind of do. Um, and when it comes to educating people, when it comes to crypto, that you have to start at the basics and realize that, I mean, the absolute basics, like what a wallet is.
I have found one CNA that knows what I'm talking about. Not extensively, because like maybe half of what I know, which is like a drop of what you guys know, but enough to be interested.
Yeah, and you got to
And
be good
and
enough.
and part of it, I think you have to have a certain.
Je ne
I
sais
don't.
quoi.
I don't want to say. I don't want to say bred into you, but a certain mindset or a certain personality type.
Pedigree.
No, no, it's not about pedigree because that would delineate, that you would have to have certain lineage to be interested in this. But no, maybe a certain mindset, like you're questing, like you like to learn things, like you're looking for something better, like you have an incentive to better yourself,
Well,
or find make your dream happen. Make look into the future, and like they taught us in the military, to what's your goal, plan backwards. Like, you have a goal, how do you make that happen? And
yeah.
if you're never looking for how you make that happen, like my goal is to not eat cat food when I retire.
That's
I
a
would
good.
like I There
I
are
like.
many places in the world I would like to go, but I do not want to go on a budget.
But Amy, that's ridiculous because cat food is fucking expensive these days.
These days, dude, Blue Buffalo probably has better food in it than I'm eating.
I know. I know. It's fucking
Oh,
funny.
hubby's coming to bed.
So, like crypto adoption like 3 years ago was only about like 1.72% of the population, which, I mean, that's a lot. That is a lot of people. But I think that
I'm
these
gonna make us rich, honey.
I hope
even
so.
even through the bear market.
Nope, I know so.
Oh yeah. I mean, you already
We're gonna
sacrificed.
retire in style, Big Daddy.
As long as you, I will say that like if you were into hex and you were listening to what was saying, and obviously it's provable that those people made it, right? Even if you were to wait 6 months, which is it's a good way to be, right? So I
Oh
know that
yeah.
people who jump in early are taking a big risk, where they can make it big or they could not. But
Right.
waiting 6 months really isn't going to hurt you, not too bad.
No.
So it's always good to like, no matter who it is that's trying to get you interested or learn stuff, it's even if you have to miss a sacrifice or something like that, or miss your entry on an ICO or something like that, it may be beneficial.
ICOs are not always the best entry point.
True.
I have learned that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think the best thing that ever happened to me, and this is so weird, and it's kind of a tangent, but not so much. It'll bring it back. We were going to a funeral, and my husband we used to ride. Okay. So I wanted to ride my own bike. I didn't want to be right behind all the time. So he bought me one. It was nice and short, and my little 5'3" could go on the ground. It was a little Yamaha, and he said, "You learn how to ride this one, I'll get you a Harley." It was such a beautiful blue. And then we were going to a funeral, and we had just done the steps and the concrete and everything in front of our house. So we're going to the funeral, and I turned around to say something to him because he kept chopping down my forsythia bush, and it would never bloom. And my foot slipped off, and I broke both my ankles, face down on the driveway, like my toes were my heel, completely turned around. So now I'm held together with plates and screws, right? And sold the bike, the whole thing, because he don't trust me to ride no more. But we've always been sort of adventurous that way. And like I said, but every time I see an opportunity, I will go for an opportunity as long as it doesn't affect my hierarchy of needs. Bills got to be paid. House has to be maintained. If I want some extra money to throw at some speculative venture, I'm going to work some overtime. And as much as I hate to say it, being an RN with my experience, COVID was fucking bank for me. I could not be this deep in the crypto if COVID hadn't happened. Because they were like, are you willing to work bring it. I don't get sick. I haven't worn a mask in months. I got COVID once. I didn't even spike a fever. And it seems really bad to say, but I kept my swab and I stuck it back up my nose so I could get my 10 days off.
Oh my God.
I literally did that. I did. I kept it in the wrapper because my work was paying for 5 days and I only work on the weekends. So I kept it in the swab, stuck it back up my nose every day for 14 days.
That's so fun.
So I kind of did that. And it's so weird that I tell you guys because I've always I've been so afraid to tell anybody. My husband doesn't know. Nobody knows except you guys.
That's funny.
And the minute that and I know my immune system's always been in high gear. I never get sick. I don't get the flu. I don't get flu shots. I don't get none of that shit. And then the very day that I decided it was time to go back to work and I didn't do that, I was negative.
Nice.
What can I say?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's heritage because my entire family hardly ever gets sick. I don't know. Whatever. Good genetics, whatever.
Of course.
But I've always been kind of a risk taker, It's like, yeah. Then like my brother's a recovering heroin addict. My other brother drank himself to death. And my one that's still alive, he says, you have addictive behavior too. And I'm like, what? And he's like, what? Your gardening obsession, your jewelry making obsession, your freaking... I'm like, oh, so I'm addicted to learning things? What? Okay. I can deal with that.
But do you maintain your hobbies or do you get bored with them after you?
No, I do. Well, like I said, I was doing my nails, because I would see jewelry that people was wearing. I'm like, I could do that. That's so simple. And then I have to find out why I could do that or how I could do that. So now my husband redid the whole, like where I live, there's like a cement room under the front porch. So he redid that whole thing, French drained it and everything, put the whole thing in there for my craft room. Well, it's overflowed. But yeah, I had a jewelry making business. I can still do that. The gardening kind of went by the wayside when I broke my ankles because I'm a lot less mobile than I used to be. But I now have and I'm almost ashamed to say it. I have over 700 bottles of nail polish because I
Well,
wanted to learn how to do all these
Damn, that's a
things.
lot. You
It
have a
is,
problem,
and I have
Amy.
all the little
Amy, you have
tools
a
and the
problem.
decals,
mhm.
because I want to learn how to do these things. So I would, and YouTube has been like my addiction. It can teach me to do anything.
I like that you're working this out now on your own. Just keep going because you're pointing out all of your addictions that your brother was absolutely right about.
Oh yeah, but what the point is that being addicted to things is not necessarily bad. It's what you're addicted to.
Yeah, I'm just playing with you, just so you
I
know.
know. Well, other people are coming in because you're the late night chat, so I guess our little tangents are done.
No, I mean I'm probably only going to be on here for maybe another 30 minutes anyway. Sorry guys, but I'm trying to sleep at night and get my shit together. And Mango's in here, and he's probably
I
working.
tried. I know. I could hear him in the background.
And Patrice is in here too.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm about to go to bed though. It's 6 a.m. here.
Holy crap! Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I'm a night shift worker, so on my day off, I'm ready to go.
It makes sense. All you night owls. I used to be one of you, but
Oh yeah. My
teacher.
PCP says to me one day, "Do you work at night?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Good, because your D3 is like, you have none."
What are you saying, Mango?
You slowly transitioning back to a daywalker?
Yeah. It's rough to do, man, because anytime that you guys get me caught up to where I'm, staying up late until like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, like I have to make that decision. Do I go to sleep? Because if I go to sleep, that means I'm going to sleep all day long and then I'm up the whole next night. It's tough. Or do I have to just battle through it, go get an espresso and just stay awake and then be able to sleep the next night? And
They have done it both ways.
Yeah, if I stay up once or twice a week, it just fucking destroys me because the next day I'm immediately trying to get back onto that track again. So I'm trying not to do that at all. I'm being, no nights. I'm about to turn 40, so I can't do it like I used to.
Yeah, man.
Dude, do I need to tell you how old I am?
Yeah, but this is your schedule. That's your schedule. Imagine once.
No, but you don't understand. I can sleep anytime, anywhere, daytime, nighttime, don't matter.
Oh.
I literally can fall asleep in the middle of a sentence.
I've fallen asleep on top of a 12-foot ladder, on the very top.
Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, but I survived.
True.
I didn't fall off of it. I fell asleep on it. Right?
Do you do that too? I can sleep sitting. Like I sleep and people don't even know I'm sleeping. I'm just sitting straight up.
Yeah, and not even I knew that I did it until I wake up and I'm like, oh fuck, that's really scary. I could have fallen.
It's weird. You don't even know you're sleeping, but do you still hear what's going on around you?
Yeah.
And you don't really even realize your eyes are closed?
Well, yeah, it's just a different level of sleep. It's not REM at all.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, me too.
But I can go straight from wide awake to REM. My mother used to say it was fun to watch me fall asleep in the middle of a sentence.
I'm not quite like that, but I mean, I think I'm just well trained to maybe like be able to work 12 or 14 hours of physical labor and stuff like this and sleep 4 hours a night. And I'm perfectly fine at being able to do that, but I got to stay on that schedule. And for the last like 8 months, my schedule's just been fucked, right? And I'm getting maybe 8 to 10 hours of sleep when I sleep, and my body is not used to that. Like I'll wake up feeling like garbage because I got too much sleep, right? So
honestly, I've and I don't know if this will work for anybody else, but I found that when you have like an erratic schedule, like I don't know if you'd call it erratic, but my sleep schedule, my personal body is erratic. So I just gave it up. I'm like, when I'm tired, I sleep. When I'm not tired, I don't sleep. And it's been so much better. Sometimes I'll sleep all day. Sometimes 3 hours. Sometimes Not at all. When I get tired, I go to sleep, but when I'm not tired, I don't.
That's my problem, is that my interest in things can keep me awake. Like New Year's. New Year's was the last time that I did this, that even I thought it was kind of weird because I don't do drugs, right? So, I mean, if you do drugs, then it's obvious that like you can do drugs and stay awake for long periods of time. But
no, I don't do those kind of drugs.
normally, like if I were to stay up all night long until like 7 o'clock in the morning, where I'm starting to things just aren't things get cloudy, right? So I'm like, I'm gonna get off of the chat and go to bed is usually what I say, but then I don't go to bed, right? Because I'm going through that battle of, do I go to sleep and sleep all day, which is not going to make me feel good, or do I just suffer? I call it suffering through the day, and then I'm just a walking zombie throughout the rest of that day, and I gotta like talk to people and do stuff and like daytime things that I would normally do. And then I'm tired. I'm like tired as fuck all day long. But then when nighttime comes around and I'm like,
wide awake again.
I'm gonna go to bed at like 10 because like if I just go lay down on the couch and pop on some Netflix, like I'm gonna fall asleep. And then I do that, right? But here's the thing is like, I don't just watch this. I never watch like movies over and over again, or I don't watch shows over and over again. I'm more intrigued.
I can't do that either.
Yeah, I'm more intrigued to like watch things that I haven't seen before, and that's kind of like the problem. So now I'm paying attention instead of just like, fuck it, I'm bored and I'm just gonna close my eyes for a second, and then I might fall asleep for like 15 minutes, and then wake up, and then it's like I slept all night, and then I'm having trouble getting back to sleep.
I do that all the time. My husband will be like, "Amy, go to bed. You're snoring." And I'm sitting there with my Kindle in my hand because I'm a bookworm, and sitting straight up, and my eyes are closed. And now that he's woken me up, I'm like wide awake.
Yeah, like you ever like when that happens to me, and I wake up for 15 minutes, and it's like now it's 1 o'clock in the morning, right? That I was watching some movie or some shit, right? And I was interested by it. The movie gets over. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, fuck, it's late. And how the hell did I not sleep last night at all? I don't even know what day it is now because of the last 48 hours have been just me up, right? Kind of.
I haven't known what day it is for years.
Right. And then when I go to bed, because I don't have a TV in my bedroom, right? I keep that out of my bedroom. So when I
refuse to have that. No.
Yeah, no, I don't do that. Like bedrooms are not for lounging and sleeping for me, at least, right?
Because when we got together, my husband wanted to put a big screen on the wall. I'm like, nope, no TV in the bedroom. Sorry.
I used to be that way. But I realized that
you're a guy.
I wouldn't go anywhere else. I'd just be in my bedroom all the time, right? But that's not the case.
You'd go to the kitchen, wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, yeah, I would probably go to the kitchen to eat, and I'd probably go to the bathroom to go use the bathroom and shower and do the stuff you do in the bathroom. But then I'd go right back to the bedroom, and then I wouldn't have. What's the point in having all my stuff, right, that I have in my living room? What's the point in me having an office, right, and stuff like this to like do other things, right? So I don't do that. But anyway, since I don't have a TV in my bedroom, the bedroom is for sleeping, and that's the only time I'm ever in my bedroom is when I'm sleeping. And when I'll go in there, like it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and then I'll lay there with my eyes closed and not fucking fall asleep. I'll literally lay there for hours until it's like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'll be like, fuck this, and just get up and then go back to my office and sit in my $400 fucking.
But seriously, did you ever just lay there in the bed in the dark and just let your mind wander?
That's what happens. That's the problem.
And then when you think it's only been a minute and you look at the clock and you're like, wow.
It's been hours. That's right.
I do that. But you never know where your brain's going to go.
I do a lot.
It's like a half awake kind of state,
The crazy thing is,
and you just think about your subconscious just brings all this stuff up, and you think about all this stuff, and you think you're wide awake, but you're really not.
I would have to say that I probably do some of my best thinking when I do go to bed, and I'm laying there and having those things happen. Like a lot of stuff that happens throughout the day or throughout the week, like I have conversations with myself in my own head and like have epiphanies or have like certain things that come up, and I even question myself while I'm having those things happen. Like
I bitch myself out daily.
Why don't I think about those things when I'm awake? Or like I'll be kind of motivated in my head while I'm trying to fucking sleep, when I'm laying in bed. And like, okay, first thing in the morning when I get up, I'm going to start cracking on these things that I've been thinking about. And then I go to sleep.
Oh, hell no.
And then I wake up, and then I come into my office and I sit here and I literally stare at the floor for a half hour and be like, fuck, man, I don't want to do none of that shit, you know?
See, that's a difference, though. I think people with a home office sometimes have a harder time than people who have to actually go somewhere to work.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, I can't do healthcare in my home, so I have to go somewhere. And many times, I really don't want to go. It's not that I hate my job. I love my job. I love my patients. I just don't want to go. But once I get there, I'm fine.
Yeah, it's just the convenience of having a home office is.
But they say you have to separate that. Like you have to put up a sign on the door or something that says "at work, don't bother me." You know,
well,
that has to be like mentally the workplace.
It's different for me because I live alone. I don't have people bothering me in my house.
Oh, you get to live alone?
Well, yeah, we have a couple of houses.
I'm kind of jealous, actually.
Well, see, like, we used to live together, and then we decided that for the sake of the relationship, that it would be best if I have my house and she has her house. And so we've done that. And so, like, I've got all my stuff and all my things, and she's got all her stuff and all her things, and it's not commingling, and we don't have children. So
there's no issue.
It's just, yeah, and it's kind of easy this way. And whenever there is an issue,
honestly, like I told you before, my parents were kind of, ahead of their time. My dad passed away like years and years and years ago. And my mom, long story short, I picked up my present husband on Yahoo Personal years ago. So my mom's like, oh, he's pretty cool. Let me do that. So she got her one.
Nice.
Very stable people. But he kept asking her to marry him. She's like, no. And she wouldn't give up the house. She's like, well, because I want to have my house to go home to if she makes me mad.
Yeah.
But I mean, she just now, like, he was just now, 90 something, and she had to put him in a home. But she still works full time. Like, she's like me. She's like, weird. But she's 80 something and serves attack and works full time. So, but that's where I get it.
Answer me this question. What happens to almost all people that retire right after they retire?
They die.
They fucking die. Yep.
They die. For real. I've seen it happen over and over again.
Yeah, my dad is an undertaker. He's a mortician. And he always says that about 2 months after retirement, one of the two that live together generally dies, and about another 2 months or a year later, the other one goes too.
Well, the longer you've been married, the shorter the one lives without the other.
Yeah.
For real.
You can't have your companion disappear on you without going through some turmoil.
Everybody I know, the older people, because I'm on the downswing of my career, so I'm generally working with the older people now because I'm getting older and I don't want to work that hard anymore.
Yeah.
But I see they've been, in the older generations, like my grandparents were married like 80 years, like all the way through World War II and on up. They got married at like 19 and 20 and forever. My grandma made it maybe 2.5, 3 years after my granddad died. She used to say, literally, I think my good health is so I could take care of your granddad. And neither one of them really had any major medical problems. They both died of old age, which you are not legally allowed to put on a birth certificate. Did you know that? You can't say they died of old age anymore, even if they're 105.
Well, there's always an underlying cause.
Yeah, old age. Parts wear out. You die.
Yeah, it's called heart failure.
Basically.
Pretty much. Yeah. Even if you die
But
of a
yeah,
broken
when you're
heart failure.
long term like that, but well, like I said, me and my husband have certain delineated responsibilities in the house.
Mm-hmm.
You don't ask me what I do with my extra money as long as the bills are paid. He's like, you can buy whatever you want.
One thing that I've noticed with a lot of people is an ability to have passive aggressive behavior. And that is toxic. It's tough. It's tough to be around. It's
I
tough
have
to
to
do.
admit that my mom is very passive aggressive.
Well, just ask, right? Like, it's you know,
Oh,
if
she
you're
knows it and she admits it. She's like, I'm the queen of passive aggressive.
well, yeah, that's
And then we
the thing.
laugh about it and have another drink, and it's okay because I don't live with her.
Well, I notice like the majority of passive aggressive people, they're not forward. They're not blunt with what they really want. They just think that other people can read their mind. Therefore, they argue with themselves about a situation that's never really happened. And when they start to be passive aggressive, and then they get met with somebody who's a little bit more thoughtful, right, mindful of that, and ask them, say, "Hey, this seems like you're upset. Would you like to talk about it?" Then it all just kind of like boils over. It just kind of boils out. The passive aggressiveness goes to more of actual aggressiveness towards
Oh
the
yeah,
other.
you busted the dam. It's coming out.
Yeah, and in the means of being able to do that, what you find out is like, okay, let's say the situation is this. One person is doing yard work or something like that, and when they come back inside, they seem to be a little passive aggressive about it. And so the other person asks them, "Hey, you want to talk about it?" And they go, "Yeah, I'm out here busting my ass while you're inside here doing nothing." While the other person is like, I don't know, doing dishes, getting dinner prepared, or doing something. But to
Right.
the person that's being passive aggressive, it doesn't matter what the other person's doing. They're just trying to be aggressive because they can't just ask for help. So and then when you're like, well, if you would just ask me for help, or if the other person would just ask for help, then you would get some help instead of just
Right.
maybe trying to figure out what the situation is. Because imagine that you're working on something, and every time someone comes in and just takes it from you, like, well, you need help with this. You just need help with this. You're so weak, right? And then you have a totally different argument, right? It's like, I'm not
And
weak.
you know what? That starts from way back in childhood. I remember when my kids were little, when they actually wanted to help you out. I want to
Right.
sweep the floor. I want to do this, So, and how hard was it when I was in school and I had thrown my ex out because he was a piece of shit? But with the two little kids in school, trying to study, trying to do this, and I wanted to go fast, but they wanted to help. And I remember my mother saying, if you don't let them help when they're little, they won't help. So I had to sit there and go, you're doing, and they're slopping the water around and they're doing this, that, and the other. I'm like, okay, you're doing wonderfully. And then that progressed into these are your weekly chores, blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of passive aggressive people are either grown up in a situation where they didn't feel comfortable asking for help,
Divorce
or
generally is for this type of behavior to happen
like
when
the children,
it's,
or they've learned how to get what they want through manipulation, emotional manipulation.
I think that you need to have a father that's around to be able to provide security and comfort in that security, and you need a mother that's around to be able to extrapolate your emotional side, so you can understand the emotions that you have and be able
Yeah,
to
well,
work.
I do come from a two-parent home, so
Yeah, to be a full individual.
the biggest trouble I ever got in, ever, ever. Well, two biggest troubles. One, I told my mother to go to hell one time in my life. I thought my dad's head was going to explode.
Oh yeah.
Like, I was never beaten, but there was a small amount of corporal punishment, but it
You
was
probably
mostly mental. They'd say, "Oh, you're getting a spanking this time." And then they'd let me think about it all night. I'm too tired. I'll do it in the morning. You
not in
know?
my house. I got told that I was going to be grounded and have all my shit taken away. Okay, this is
Oh,
what
it happened. I
my
was
mom used to
grounded
tell me.
forever.
I was told that I got a choice. You could either get your ass whooped by me right now, and you'll learn your lesson real quick, or you can be grounded and you'll have some of your stuff taken away for like the next 2 weeks, right? And of course, me, hell no. Of course, me, I don't want to get hit. So I
I'd have
said,
taken the ass whooping. You're not taking my
you
shit.
gotta hear the story though. So I take the easy route out. Mind you, I'm like 7 or 8 or some shit when this happened. And my mom wasn't the one to fuck with. And I found this out very quickly. So I take the easy route out, and she didn't like that. She did not like that at all. I said, all right, ground me. Just put me in my room and ground me. So she beat my ass for being pissed off about it. And then she grounded me for 2 weeks. And then took the whole family out to dinner. I had to stay home. Every time my friends would come over, it'd be like, no. And then she'd tell my friends what I did. And she'd tell them grounded and the whole 9 yards, everything. And I learned really, really quickly that when my mother says something, I listen to her. And on top of it, it wasn't just get my ass whipped by her and be grounded. It was wait till your father gets home.
Because when I had that one too.
You're going to get round number 2 on your ass. Think that I took it to you. He's going to give you a choice too. And his only choices when it came to those things wasn't get grounded. It was, do you want the brown belt or do you want the black belt?
No, I never got the belt. I got the hairbrush. It was either the smooth side if it was just a little bit, or the bristle side if I was really bad.
See, my mom was raised by a very German family. Very, very German. Came from Germany, the whole 9 yards.
Ooh, they're tough. They're very tough.
She was whooped by any fucking thing that they can get their hands on. My grandfather even had a hazing paddle that he drew holes into. He drilled holes.
Those are bad. Oh, those are bad.
He drilled holes into but this is back when like that type of punishment was even done in school, right? Like,
I remember.
Yeah, when I was in school, I think it was around the 80s. You know, if you fucked up, the teacher would paddle your ass and shit too.
Our teachers my principal had one of those paddles with the holes hanging off his wall, but my mother said nobody's whooping her ass but me. If she fucks up, you call me.
My mom was completely different. My mom was like, by all means, whoop his ass, and then when he gets home, I'm whooping his ass, and then when his dad gets home, he's whooping his ass. So I was. Well,
they were both teachers, so they wanted to do it.
Yeah, I was.
Meow.
I still was a bad kid, you know. I still did my fair share of thinking that I could get away with shit and finding out the hard way, right? Which is kind of like how I do all of my life, is the hard way. But I learned valuable lessons, so I'd rather learn lessons the hard way than be a dumbass and not learn from shit. You know,
see, that's the thing. That's part of what I think is wrong with the younger people today. They've never learned any lessons.
Yeah, and they're all a bunch of dumbasses.
They've had helicopter parents. Everything. I want to be your friend. I will provide. There's no real punishment for anything. You know what I mean? And I don't want to blame all the parents because they want to make a better life for their kids. You know, they want to make it easier for their kids. Every group of parents wants to make it easier for their kids, but they can't make it easier to the point of
nobody wants to have the CPS agent.
The little brats that we're seeing now.
That's the problem, is that parents are afraid of their kids, that they're going to go to school and that school is going to send the CPS agent and the sheriff.
Not only that, but how many times you've been out in public and you've seen some little 9-year-old tell their mother to shut the fuck up, don't touch me. I would be over that. Ooh, boy.
Oh, yeah. Yep. When I was like 16 or some shit like this, there was like a little 8-year-old boy that I was like washing my Camaro or some shit. And he came over. I was like already almost done with washing my Camaro. And he comes over and he's like, I'll help you wash it for like $5. And since I felt bad and I was already done with it anyway, I'm like, what damage could he do? So like I gave him $5 because he had the balls to come over and like ask to actually do some work, which I kind of respected.
I'll work for some money. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and it was like dinner time, and he lived like, I don't know, maybe 4 houses down from where I was at the time. And his mom comes out of the house and yells for him that dinner's done and he needs to come over. And he says, fuck you, bitch, get back in the house. And my mom, who was mowing the grass over the lawnmower, heard this kid say that. And I heard that lawnmower shut off, and I stepped back away from the car, like eyes know.
Hell yeah, she whooping his ass.
Oh, she took her open hand and swatted him like to the ground across his ear. Whop! And he just
boxing the ears. Ooh.
Oh yeah. It was like he's lucky he was able to hear anything for the rest of his fucking life after making that comment to his own mother.
See, that's the thing. Where I grew up in my neighborhood, my parents were like that too. Anybody's mother would discipline, maybe not that intensive, but when you saw someone else's child doing something wrong, you would stop them.
Yeah. His mom came down like later and like thanked my mom for doing that because she wouldn't do that. That's why he was a little asshole. You know, she was crying because of what he had said to her. Right. My mom was not having it. Not at all.
My boys are way bigger than me. I'm 61 actually. And you know, I still have two out of four of them living in the house. And my shortest one's like 6'1". And
Yeah.
I knew they were going to be big because all the men in my family are big and all the women are short.
That's so funny that you say
I
that.
knew I had to put discipline I put the fear of mother into him from the get-go.
Yeah.
Like
my mom
and I can scream and holler and throw fits around the house and they don't pay no attention, but when I get quiet, then they get scared.
Yeah, my mom never raised her voice in the house ever. Not ever. Not
No,
that I could
sometimes I do.
No, she never, ever did. But whenever she had something to say, you knew to listen, and that was about it.
See,
Like
my grandma, I could never be like my grandma. She would look at me and she would go, Amy. and I would just feel so horrible inside.
Yeah, that disappointment look. Yeah. Oh no.
Oh my God. Oh my God. She could get me to do, and she was only 5'3". My granddad was 6 foot, like 5.5, 6'6", something like that. And she would just give me that little look and she'd go, Amy. And I was like, oh, yep. I'm crushed. Just crushed.
Yeah. Dude, my mom told me the same thing when I was about 21 because I moved out of the house when I was like 17. So I'd lived on my own like ever since then. And she made that comment to me. She's like, I knew that there was going to come one day when you kids were bigger than I was. And I just need to make sure that by the time that you guys were out on your own, that you knew how to behave in public. And and that was kind of like a shocking thing to hear her say that. And I was like, I would never, ever, ever, like, even though I am bigger than you, like, there's no fucking way I would ever do that, ever. And she's like, then I did my job well. And I'll tell you that there was a time that when I was probably about 17, 18, and I was already 6 foot tall, 210 pounds, played football, strong safety. I worked out every day. I was kind of a monster at that time.
Yeah, see, right? Mine were that tall, but not that big. They're tall and slim.
Yeah. Well, I'm still tall and slim now because I'm older, but back when I was a teenager and I was playing sports and shit, it was a little different. And I thought it was a smart idea because I'd never been the type to scare my mom, right? Just as like a prank. And she went to the restroom and I was hiding. I was like around the wall. And when she came around the corner, I jumped out.
Oh, you didn't.
And her immediate reaction was to do to me like she did the little 8-year-old that said, fuck you, bitch, go back in the house. Yeah. Popped me like full hand, everything she had right into it. And I just looked at her like, holy shit, you know, and I've had my ass whooped for doing, you know, shit I shouldn't have been doing like for a long time. So, but by then she, you know, I think that shit stopped and I learned my lesson when I was around like 12, 13, right before I went into like middle school age, right? And girls were like a thing, right? Like I started to behave a little bit.
There's a thing mothers have to do. And you were talking about the nuclear family, the father and the mother thing. There is a thing mothers do to boys that turns them into men.